We already know that sampling is testing a few items instead of the entire population. But for your CISA exam, you are also expected to understand what compliance and substantive testing are and explain their differences. We've already looked at the steps of a risk-based audit in a previous video, with two of those steps being compliance testing and substantive testing. These are the two purposes of audit sampling and testing. We are either trying to test if the rules are being followed, that's compliance testing, or check if the numbers are right, that's substantive testing. To check if the rules are being followed, the auditor will begin by requesting the organisation's policies, standards and procedures. There is a video later in the course explaining exactly what those are, but for now, just know that they are documents which will explain how the controls should be operating. Now the auditor has the document which defines how the controls should be operating, they can begin compliance testing those controls to see if they are operating as intended. For example, an organisation's invoice procedure might state that all supplier invoices must be approved by management before they are paid. To perform compliance testing of this, the auditor would gather a sample of invoices and check that each one has an approval signature from management. Notice how it's a simple yes or no for each sample, and the result is how many are compliant. The example here is showing attribute sampling, which is a type of compliance testing that we will look at in detail later. But once compliance testing is complete, the auditor moves on to substantive testing. And the amount of substantive testing the auditor will do depends on the results of the compliance test. It's a bit like a seesaw. If the results from the compliance test were strong or positive, then the auditor can reduce the amount of substantive testing. If the results of the compliance test were weak or negative, the auditor will increase the amount of substantive testing. When performing substantive tests, the question now becomes whether the numbers on the invoices are recorded correctly. To test this, the auditor would take a sample of invoices and compare the amount shown on each invoice to the amount recorded and paid. Any difference identified would be noted as a misstatement. Notice how each sample produces an amount, and that the result is how much the invoices are misstated by. The example here is showing variable sampling, which is a type of substantive testing that we will cover in another video. At the moment, just focus on understanding the difference between compliance and substantive testing. It is very common for the CISA exam to describe a scenario of what an auditor is doing, and then ask you to identify if they are performing compliance or substantive testing. If the auditor is checking whether a procedure or control is being followed, that is compliance testing, and they will usually be doing this based on the organisation's policies, standards and procedures. If the auditor is checking whether the figures or amounts are correct, that is substantive testing. You may also get questions that test that you know that compliance testing comes before substantive testing, and that strong compliance testing results allows for reduced substantive testing.